Uncle Harry's invited me here for a reason, and I wear two hats tonight. I represent the Keerong Gas Squad. And so the first part of what I want to say is in fact about the Keerong Gas Squad, because those people, what we need to see across this country is what happened in Keerong, and they sort of spontaneously erupted. It started with 4 women, it's almost famous now, it's anecdotal, 4 women over a packet of Tin Tams. And they decided that the gas drilling that was happening in their valley could not happen, and so they formed a group. And since that group was formed, we've been on the trajectory together with the people from Keerong. I live in North Lismore, so it's not the Keerong Valley, but it's the same floodplain. And they've spoken to people. We've spoken to people all around the area. We've gone and revisited, and we've spoken to possibly some thousands of people in the region in the last 3 months. And we've noticed that bit by bit people are rising up. 4 or 5 months ago it seemed that no one knew what an aquifer was, and now we're all here for the aquifers. So it's good to understand that every superficial body of water in this country is fed from underground. Even here in the wettest area, or one of the wettest areas in Australia, we are fed from underground. So what Harry's drawn there, you have to be a black fella to see it, juxtapositions everything else that we're talking about tonight. I'd like to thank the people of Keerong. One of the things they did was take the hat around and send a commission, as a commission, 4 people to Canberra: me, Harry, Ross and Ian Gayard, who wasn't here tonight. He can't be here tonight because he's away doing his carpentry act. That's a shame, we miss him. And so I'd like to bring the message. It's been put up on the agenda for later and that can be talked about, but his message, and we could say from Keerong Valley, is that the 11th meeting of the gas companies, that is the fracking gas companies, the coal seam gas energy, will be held in Brisbane on the 29th of May. It'll take 4 days, and we're hoping to get a sign, and we're allowed in, I guess, more than anything because of the weight of Harry's presence. There's a lot of people. I just want to tell you about 2 of them. One of them was Julia Gillard's senior advisor, and his name is John McQueen. He comes from Kyoto. He was the president of the National, I believe it was the Dairy Cattle Association for 20 years. He's a very experienced man, a very knowledgeable man, and in a lot of ways a good bloke. So when we had a chat with him, he tried to pass the buck. He tried to pass the buck back to the States. At every point he could get, he was saying, it's not us, it's not federal, it's the States. But then he said, and this could be an indication of a way we here in this valley can go. He said, we only signed off on 2 things on the fracking situation. Now those 2 things were Curtis Island. Curtis Island is where they're going to take and pipe all the gas. And he said the Bowen and Surat basins. So Curtis Island is what the proximity to the Great Barrier Reef is what triggered the Federal Environmental Act, which is why they had to sign off on it for this project to go ahead. We're in a similar situation here. We have World Heritage all through here, and that opens up a possibility for us. I explained to him that, you know, there's been a project across the Great Artesian Basin for 30 years to cap the 20,000 cattle bores that were bleeding the guts out of the basin. It was an emergency. It's been entered into by 4 states and the federal government, and every bit of money they put in was backed up by the landholders themselves. So they are trying to block 20,000 cattle bores, and the project still carries on as we speak to save the Great Artesian Basin. Because one bore over time not only bleeds the water out, but it creates what they call a cone of depression, and you mix what we say colloquially the salt with sweet water. I informed him, or we informed him as we were sitting there, that what was projected in the Bowen and Surat basins was 40,000 fracking wells. And when he heard that, when he realised what he'd admitted to and what they'd signed off, his head went down almost to the table and he stayed silent for a moment. And so what I'm here to do is to explain for Uncle Harry certain things of the legislation and also from the Keerong Gas Squad. And so what we found out from John McQueen was that they had signed off, the federal government had signed the Environmental Act on what's happening over the border. And that gives us a plan of action in a sense, and that we here, we have World Heritage, and we need to trigger the Federal Environment Act. When we later spoke to the Minister for the Environment and Water, Mr. Burke, He said to me after about 20 minutes of cordial conversation, and we explained, his head went down too, I might add. He was backing up saying species, species, species. And that's a very clear message he was giving us, that we need to trigger the Federal Environmental Act. I just leave that laying there. The way that Kieron has come up with that is we're starting to address an august body of people, some of them who are our mates, some of whom aren't. Most of them have good government positions, and we're fortunate in this region, and we have some of the best botanists and biologists anywhere in the country, and we can certainly find species. I'm not taking that any further, I just want to put that there, because one of the reasons why we're coming here tonight is tactics. So we've got a protest, and we have the Environmental Act that we can trigger here. Other people over the other side of the caldera want to go toe-to-toe over the Onshore Mining Act, the Petroleum Act, with the New South Wales government, and I certainly wouldn't stop them. That's another level of activity that's starting to roll out. So we're inviting people to, in a sense, the glitterati, we call them, to put together the case. We know we have the people, we know we have the imagination, we know we have the story to trigger the Environmental Act. Now we have our local situation, and the Kieron people were the first. They took it to their local council in such a way, with the help of a councillor, and put it to them in such a way that they had to declare a moratorium. We, from Kieron up to into moratoriums, we want that word scrubbed out of the lexicon. We just want it banned, but a moratorium seems to be the go. And so we've had a little bit of an outbreak of that recently in Kyogle and also in the Tweed. So we have that level of government. We have Rouse Water. Now Rouse Water serves 4 council regions, and we surrounded them a little bit. They have also come out asking, sadly, but correctly, for a moratorium. So we have this battle going on at the local level. We have people prepared to go state to state with the New South Wales government. We have the on-the-ground activities, and we have the possibility of triggering the Federal Act. And here, and this is what Uncle Harry has asked me to come and show you today. And I need to explain to you something about Aboriginal and white law and how it's being used across the country, because a lot of people don't want to get their minds around this, and as Harry has instructed me, I think I need to take the time to explain this to you in some detail, because it affects our local region, it affects our state, and it affects the whole nation.